Most leaders say they want peak performance from their teams, but ignore one of the simplest levers to get it: health and wellness. Today's guest, Sheri Traxler, is a nationally recognized wellness expert, speaker, and CEO of ViReo Life. She spent over 30 years helping leaders move beyond check-the-box wellness to create programs that truly change behavior, boost productivity, and retain top talent. We dig into the business case for wellness, the simple daily habits that drive ROI, and how leading by example transforms culture. Listen closely. These insights could be the energy advantage your team's been missing. Welcome to the No Limits Leadership Podcast. We discuss ancient wisdom, real-world experiences, and the latest concepts on mastering leadership of self and others. If you're committed to maximizing your life and your impact on the world, you're home. Welcome to the No Limit Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Sean Patton. I am very excited today to have Sheri Traxler with us. She's a nationally recognized wellness expert, speaker, and behavior change specialist with over 30 years of experience helping leaders and organizations optimize health for peak performance. As the CEO of ViReo Life, Sheri equips companies to move beyond the check-the-box wellness and build high-impact programs that actually change behavior, boost productivity, and retain top talent. Sheri, thanks for being on here today. And you helped me before with the name of your company that ViReo Life is like Oreos.
Cheerio.
Did I say it right? Cheerios. Okay, I did get it right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, well, I got it right. I got it right in the intro. So, you know, we're already batting 1,000.
Yeah.
But no, thanks for being on here today. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, it's my pleasure. And I've always, Vireo it's not a common word. It's a Latin word. And so people are like, how do I pronounce this? It's like, just pretend you're over in Scotland or Ireland or wherever it is that they say Cheerio. It's like, it rhymes with that.
Perfect. No one is going to forget it now and they'll know to go look it up. And you said it's a Latin word. What's it mean in Latin?
So it is I'm a geek on this, so we're going to dive into it.
Please.
That Vireo, the word is in first person present tense, and it means I flourish, I thrive, I am strong and active. So when I was getting my trademark for my company actually used to be called something pretty generic. And the trademark attorney was like, nope, Sheri, that ain't going to fly. You got to find something. So I did. And when I came across that, it just hit me so strong because it was every time somebody says the name of my company, they are confessing over themselves that they flourish, they thrive, they're strong and active.
Isn't it crazy? I feel like, there's so many other languages, or especially I feel like older languages, they just have better words. I feel like we took, like, there'd be a word that was like it perfect and it meant this one thing, and we needed to like chop it up and make it be four things. And there's like a better word. I feel like I see that all the time with, different languages,
Well, I think it's that. And I also think it's that because we tend to dumb down our own language, there's probably English words that we quit using 100 years ago that have a richness to them that we don't know about because we don't use them anymore.
Yeah, that is 100% true. I'm like fascinated. We're totally off on a side quest, but that's cool. We'll come back to the main quest in a second. But I'm totally interested in like is it etymology? Is that the right word? Like the history of like the study of language, I guess. Is that the right word? Do you know?
Sounds right.
I'm
we're going with it.
Yeah, there's going to be like comments on this, like, you idiot, that is not what that means. But I'm pretty sure that's what it means. But yeah, I think that's such a fascinating, topic. And I've only, I learned a little Spanish, but for the military, I had to learn Arabic. And I found there's like still words in Arabic that I'm just like, something will come up in a conversation, and in my head, I'll be like, that's, the word is this, like,
Interesting.
there's a word that I use all the time in Arabic called wasta. And it basically is just like presence, power, someone that has a lot of influence and like people want to follow and they respect. But I mean, it has an element of like respect, but also of like real power, like someone like, who runs things or that people want to follow, or like almost like a warlord, but not like a militia leader, but not like a over violent, like Gestapo type person, just like a very powerful person. And there's all these times,
in other words, kind of a power under control, that they've got all this power, but they're not violent with it unless they absolutely had to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And like they're respected for it. And so all this time I'm just like, this person is wasta, but I know no one knows what I'm talking about. So, anyway, all right, well, good, great word. Love that. What we're supposed to be talking about today on the podcast.
Okay, this is going to be a hard segue, and that is what we're talking about is how to make individuals and teams more wasta.
More wasta, yes, and make them flourish and be stronger. Just like your ViReo life. So, as we talk about that, one of the questions when we were doing our pre-interview call that came up was like about what do organizations, as we're talking about business leaders here, and we'll talk more specifics about individual health and all those things, but like at an org level, should they or do they have a moral, a legal any obligation? How does of an organization or a business, do they have an obligation to have part of their purpose or their structure be health and wellness?
Great question. Yes and no. No, in the sense that there is no, other than safety guidelines, things like that, there is nothing out there legally or maybe even morally that's saying this is something you have to do. This is something that you must do. However, for the sake of your stakeholders, if you want your company to not only survive, but thrive, you want to outperform your competition, yes, you absolutely have to have it because it is the game changer. 89% of employees who are looking for a place to work or are currently working in your organization, they are looking for wellness as a part of that. There's all kinds of other stats we can go into if you want to, of the way that wellness impacts the bottom line. So yeah, it's not morally required, but for success of your organization, it's absolutely essential.
So give me the business case for including health and wellness as a priority for my business.
Ooh, I love how you phrased that. 6 to 10 times ROI.
Wow. Okay. Say more about that.
That's kind of the bottom line number of, for every dollar that you invest as a business owner in wellness, you're going to get a 6 to 10 return on it. And that's going to come in in things like productivity, employee engagement, top talent recruitment, top talent retention. It's going to, like one study, this was one of my absolute favorite studies on even just an exercise program, not even a full-blown wellness program. On the days that employees exercised versus the days that they did not, there was an over 20% improvement in their interactions as a team. So if you've got conflict on your team, maybe they just need to go for a walk at lunch. So it's the way wellness impacts the way that wellness impacts your business is super profound.
I also feel like, we talk about attracting and retaining not just anyone, but in this competitive landscape, like the best people or, top talent, top tier people. And what I've noticed, especially with sort of the senior executives I work with, business owners, those are channel people I work with, especially kind of one-on-one. In the last few decades, like they see for themselves how their physical, mental health, spiritual, all the healths, right, allow them to perform at their best. And so other top performers, like health and wellness is like the higher someone performs or almost the higher ambition they have or professionally, I see a correlation between them also wanting to perform well and prioritizing health and wellness as well. That's what I'm seeing. I don't know if you see that as well.
Mm-hmm. It is, it's at least on their radar. Even if they are not pursuing it, they're like, yeah, I know that I need to. Whereas many years ago, when I started in this industry, no, it was just kind of assumed that you grind it out and you work 100 hours a week and you don't take care of yourself. And then because I work with a lot of executives on burnout, they know that they're burning out and they know that wellness has to be a part of their program to get out of burnout.
And especially I would think with the, I don't want to say, maybe we'll say it, like younger generations or newer generations, like it's a different, like you mentioned, a different mindset between, because we're in I think, a pretty unique place with, depending on the size of your organization, where we've got, I've heard people say four or even five distinct generations working together in the workplace. So you everywhere from, you might have, a boomer down to a Gen Z, maybe a Gen Alpha intern, right? Whatever the Gen, like you've got all different levels, but what I see, those rising, those millennials who, that's, I'm right between I'm the Gen Y, I'm that micro generation between millennials and Gen X, where they're rising in their 40s now, into 40s and early 50s, into senior leadership positions. And the way they look at and prioritize their health and wellness and fitness is different, maybe, than the people they're replacing that maybe came from that boomer generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking stereotypes at this point.
Of course.
Because as we're talking about it, my mind is actually going to some of the CEOs that I've worked with in the past and top leaders I've worked with in the past, like talking 20 plus years ago, that, yeah, health and wellness for many of them was a top priority. And they have gotten to and what I find interesting is, and this is more individual than team, and we can go back to team talking about, corporation level if we want. But on an individual level, sometimes when somebody has already gotten to that very, 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 very top level, they are at a place in their life that they are outsourcing everything except for what they can't outsource. And you cannot outsource your health and wellness. Sometimes it's that upper level management or maybe mid-level management that they're not quite at the place that they can outsource literally everything except for their work, their family, and their health and wellness. So for them, that's where a lot of times I see the burnout coming in, because they're trying to get to that next level in their career or grow their business at that next level. And yeah, but I can't really outsource everything else.
All right. Well, I think that's last time it was a hard segue. Now it's an easy segue, because now you're talking about those rising leaders inside an organization, and we're, senior leaders. And we know that there's the business case to support that. We don't want those middle and rising leaders to burn out, sacrifice their health, because it's going to, as you mentioned, increase conflict, decrease performance, all those other things. So at an org level, if we know that, and we're trying to, take care of our people and also get our best ROI on the talent we have, like, what should we be doing inside of that? And I guess in short, it's like, what actually works at an org level to accomplish that, versus maybe what doesn't, or, there's a lot of wellness stuff out there that I see companies do or put out, and sometimes it seems check the boxish. Is that a word? Check the boxy, as opposed to impactful. It's like they're doing it to say they do it, as opposed to making sure that and seeing it as the business case for ROI. So what works and what doesn't?
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Well, we can spend the rest of the time just talking about this, because this is so rich. This is so good. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, why are you doing this? What is your goal? Is your goal to outperform the competition? And to do that, maybe in your industry, you're needing faster iteration of product. You're needing fast thinking. You're needing creative thinking. That is very different than an organization that, oh, we're self-insured and we're seeing a whole lot of our population deal with diabetes or deal with heart disease or deal with whatever. You're going to look at something different at that point. One, you're going to be looking at what is going to help people's brain health, what is going to help people to perform better, be more alert without living on lattes. Like one of my talks that I do in organizations is get energized without living on lattes. And it's like, okay, how do we do this without them doing that? Somebody else, it's going to be, I'll give you a couple of real life examples. Just last week, I was talking with an organization that they had someone come in, actually last week, a dermatologist to come in and talk about skin health and sun exposure and all the things related to skin health. That was because as this company is not just wanting to do some feel good stuff, but you know what? We're self-insured. We have, as far as I could tell anyway, they're self-insured. So this is about what are we doing for our employees' health so that we're keeping our healthcare cost down. That's not necessarily going to improve productivity other than way down the road, somebody doesn't have skin cancer, so they're staying at work. If someone is saying we're wanting to have brain health, then you're going to be looking at what are we having in our break room? Bring in a nutritionist to do an evaluation of that. Are we having standing desks so that people are able to stand while they work? I'm standing right now. You may be standing right now.
I'm standing too. Look at me. I'm moving.
Okay,
I'm
there we
moving.
go. We're
I'm
moving.
on my feet.
Yeah. Oh, all right. We know that the blood flow to your brain increases when you do that, but it's not just about having the standing desk. There was a company 2 years ago, I think it was. I went to and I did this whole program for them on energy, having better brain energy and so forth. I did not know that they had standing desks because when I came into the office, everybody in all their cubicles was sitting down at their desk. So I start talking about the benefits of a standing desk and how to make shift if you don't have one. And somebody raised their hand and they go, "Oh, Sheri, we all actually have standing desks." They had just invested a total redesign, remodel of their office. Everybody got these high-end standing desks and nobody was using them. So after this education session, I walk out and literally, Sean, without exaggeration, every person had their desk up. I thought, this is so good. The owner, yes, this owner had just invested probably as many employees as they had, probably $50,000 in standing desks, and nobody was using them. They bring in a speaker for one simple session, and now everybody's using it and getting the benefit of it. Oh, hands down, easy things that you can do. You were talking about checking the box, and interrupt me anytime because you've got me on a soapbox now. I can talk forever, so jump in.
Stay up there. Stay up there.
Okay.
I'm listening.
So I remember, and this goes back like 20 or 30 years, when we first in the wellness industry started looking at corporate wellness. We were looking at what we thought was important at that point, and that was, okay, fitness. We're going to go for fitness. Well, what do we do for fitness at that time? If there was a very large organization, we built a gym on site. If it was a smaller organization, you gave everybody a gym membership. Sean, who used that?
People that are already going to the gym.
Exactly. It just made it super convenient for the people who were already going to do it. The population that wasn't going to get the benefit, the population that needed to do it either because of healthcare cost or productivity or whatever, they aren't going to use it. So now we start looking at what do we need to do? And there's twofold with this. One, what do we need to do to help people mentally make the shift? And so here you mentioned behavior change in my intro. That's a big piece of it. It's what do we do on not just an individual level, but on a group level so that people begin to change their behavior. Part of that is making things available. So nothing wrong with having a gym membership reimbursement. But part of that is something called stages of change. And I think in our pre-interview talk, we talked, I mentioned that phrase to you. So in stages of change, you've got somebody who is pre-contemplation. That is, they don't even know that this is an issue. They don't even know that eating junk food every day and living on coffee and going from bed to desk to bed and not moving at all. They don't even know it's an issue. That's pre-contemplation. And then you go through contemplation, you go through exploration, and you're thinking about maybe doing something, and then you're starting to take some action all the way up to maintenance. In a nutshell, you need something in your organization for every person along that journey. So that if you've got somebody in your organization that's pre-contemplation, maybe you have some signs in your break room talking about the benefits of eating fruits and vegetables, and you make them available. It's not that you don't have the other stuff there, but you've got some options for them. If you are dealing with a lot of stress in your workplace, you start having things in a newsletter and an email talking about the benefits of stress management. And then you bring in a speaker to talk about how to manage your stress. You bring in whether it's a meditation or a yoga or whatever's the vibe for your organization, what people would be open to. You start making some of those things available. And then all the way up to somebody who is they're active, they are doing these things. What do they want to take to the next level? Because if it's an A performer in wanting growth, they don't want to just, okay, I went for a 2-mile walk. What can I do? Are we going to be starting as a company and getting involved in some 5Ks or 10Ks? So that gives you a few ideas. Jump from there with any questions you have.
Yeah, so let's go through those. So I like the pre-contemplative phase. Sounds like to me the education phase. So
Yes.
I'm just repeating back. So what I'm hearing from you is that we need education that is also tailored to population, work environment, vibe, all those things, right? Because we also have
and also education on what that company's goals are. Because if that company's goals are about healthcare cost, then we're going to look at the big hitters, heart disease, cancer, et cetera. If that organization, if the goal is we've got a lot of really bad relationships and we need people getting along better, then we need to start educating on stress management and conflict resolution, things like that. If it's an organization that's like, no, it's in a rapidly changing industry, we need to look at how do we iterate faster? We need a lot of creativity. Okay, we need education on this. These are the things that you can do in your day to make your brain more powerful.
Okay. Love that. So that's pre-contemplative phase. And then the next one is
Contemplation.
Contemplation. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does it look like in those different areas to address that and make that available? So now if someone knows they've got the education piece in those different areas, how do we fill that phase?
Love that. So they're both actually education, but it's two different kinds. Pre-contemplation, they are not going to seek out the education. They're not going to go to a lunch and learn, but they are going to read what is on the break room wall. They are going to read, they may not open the email, but they'll at least read the subject line of the email. And if the subject line of the email says, did you know that did you know that X decreases your risk of heart disease? Oh, okay.
I would say decreasing angst probably helps your risk.
Yeah, that works too. That works too. Yeah. That's good. That was not a slip then. So pre-contemplation is more passive education where they're just kind of becoming exposed to it. Contemplation is, oh, maybe I need to start looking at this. Oh, my company is offering a lunch and learn on how to get more energy so that I can. And also is what is the benefit to the employee? If the benefit to the company is, oh, they're going to be more energetic at work. The benefit to the employee is, I've got energy at 6:00 when I get home to be with my kids. So things are phrased differently when you are basically marketing it to your employees. So at that point, that person who's contemplating is saying, all right, I will go to this lunch and learn because it's going to help me.
Okay.
And then
on both those, actually, before we hop in there, so when you're trying to make a decision about that, is that just like a conversation with some leaders? Is this like a survey tool that, you would put out to be like, because what does matter to my employee? So like, what is going to be, because like any good marketing, right? You want to know your audience and where you're going to position. So is it a combination of company priority, survey population, use those two to inform the education piece in the pre-contemplative, the contemplative phase?
Yes. And you would use both, and you would actually use both. You would use the survey in a different way too. So when I'm getting information from a company on this, we're looking at what do we already know generally about this population. If most of your employees are older, they're going to look for, they're empty nesters. They're not going to necessarily need energy at 5:00 to be with their family. If you've got folks that are in their 30s, yeah, they got youngins at home. They they need to be able to have energy when they get home. And also when somebody's in their 30s, they can't get away with all the things they used to get away with and still come to work sharp. And so that's a different conversation too. The other thing with the survey individually that I really love doing is then there's two things that happen, Sean. One, you've got numbers, you've got data then to go to the leadership in that company and say, this is why we need this. Like there was a company that I did a pre-energy survey, and on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most amount of energy you can have, 1 being you're crawling into work. There was a co-owned company. It was a small company, co-owned. One person, one owner was really into wellness and knew that the team needed this. The other was like, okay, whatever. Their aggregate score came in at a 5.6. And that owner that was like, "Oh, we really don't need this," when she saw that, she was sold. She was like, "Okay, whatever we need to do to get the team's energy up, because this is obviously affecting customer service in a way that she didn't realize." It was, it's all the things. So it's a great selling point. And then you've also got metrics that after 6 months of running a program, after 3 months even running of a program, you can see here's a change, or here's what's not changing that we thought would. So we need to switch what we're offering, or here's what they're responding to. Because sometimes people don't know what their motivation is. We think they do, but they don't always. So you can get it on paper, and then you realize sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And we need to make some fine tuning.
We'll also love that because then you've got that quantifiable ROI that you mentioned of, right? Like then you implement your protocol and 6 months later, a year later, you do it and everyone's at a 7.1 and you're like, oh,
Right.
you've
Right.
got a way to quantify that. So we've got pre-contemplative, contemplative, next phase.
Next is where you're starting to explore. And that is someone, and we'll do it on an individual level. If somebody says, "Okay, I've been contemplating getting into an exercise program," when they start exploring, it's they're starting to talk to a couple of personal trainers, or they're starting to look at some gyms. They're starting to take not the action of actually working out, but they're starting to fill things out. So in an organization, what this is going to look like is when you're starting to put some opportunities in place, not just lunch and learns, but you're making changes in your break room as far as what's being offered. You're having a once a week session with somebody coming in doing a yoga, meditation, or whatever, if it's a stress management. You're offering, a lot of companies are doing this now through BetterHelp, having therapy being an option. Then you're having people starting to look at the resources that the company is making available and feeling those things out, even if they're not committed to it yet. The next level up from that is action. And that's where they're saying, okay, I'm actually going to sign up for the therapy, or I'm going to not just go to these lunch and learns, but start implementing it, or start getting some coaching. Because some companies will offer coaching to their manager levels and up, one-on-one coaching with me or whomever. And then maintenance is when I've been doing this for 6 months. At that point, it's becoming a habit.
I love those. And what I'd like to add on that is, I think it's important to remind ourselves of like scale. So when we're talking from the org level down, generalization, population level stuff, but then we're talking about individuals and individual responsibility, right? And what we can do. And, as a leadership podcast, I want to call out that, I have a concept called what I call the 4 leadership canaries, right? Like canary in a coal mine.
Yeah.
Of like what are our leading indicators that our leadership efforts are working? Because it's hard to get ROI on those things. Just like a lot of times in health, it's hard to get ROI on those things. And one of them, maybe the biggest one, is they start mimicking your behavior without you saying anything. And so I think that the leadership by example here, to your point of like everyone walked in, the leader bought
the owner bought those $50,000 in standing desks, but like no one was using them. But if those top leaders, so they went down to the top manager on the floor, and were like told them like, here's the benefit. Also, I want you to do that because if you do it, everyone else will. Or who are informal influencers, if they would have done it, more people would have done it. But no one stepped up and did it, right? And I use the example of, I'll brag on this is now almost 10 years old, my wife, Madison, girlfriend at the time, she worked as a salesperson for Postmates downtown at Cummins Station, doing B2B sales and tech sales. And they were in person all on their phones. They were doing calling and stuff. Not a healthy environment generally overall, pizza parties and all that stuff, the cold brew kegs and all those things. And to your point, there was a gym in the same building and no one ever used it. But Madison takes her health and wellness very seriously. And at the time, especially, she was competing, doing jujitsu a lot. And so, and people would go to the Mexican restaurant just above them for lunch every day, right? So Madison would just bring her own salads or whatever. And she would just bring her own salad. And at first, I remember people would give her crap, right? They'd be like, eating the rabbit food, whatever. Do you want a slice of pizza, whatever? She's like, no, I'm good. She would do that. And then also she would schedule her lunch where she would be able to go to the gym. So she would go to the gym, come back, eat at her desk, work. She would just do that over and over again. And then she became a junior manager. And it went from then people started asking, and then she noticed some people on her team started bringing their lunches.
Oh,
and then, and then it was then they would sit and eat with her. And then, and then she had a couple people ask her hey, I see you go to the gym every day. I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. Can I go with you? So then she had a workout buddy, workout team that would go work out with her and go back. And it just goes to show you that that was before she was in a formal leadership role. And so I think this is this intersection of leadership and health and wellness as an example of, you don't have to be the CEO owner to affect the org, to impact other people, to be a leader. Leader is about influence, not about position or title. And so this is, health and wellness is such a powerful place where, because it's so physical and real, where we can step up no matter where we're at in an organization, lead by example, and we can shift culture just through our own personal actions at an org level.
Yes. And one, fabulous for Madison. You go, girl. And from a leadership standpoint with that, I remember hearing a leader talking about they always worked out at lunch, but they just felt weird about it for whatever reason. And so they basically hid it. They would not change at the office. They would be showered and changed when they got back. Nobody knew where they went. And then this leader was frustrated because nobody was working out. And they realized, oh, it's because I'm not being transparent in setting the example. So they started owning it. People started seeing it. And the biggest thing that people said was it gave them permission then to go do that because the leader was doing it and able then, because we know if you go work out at lunch, you're going to be 10 times more productive in the afternoon. Your brain's going to be sharp. So it helped the organization, of course, but it also helped those individuals.
Yeah, it's gave them permission, so to pull this out in even a bigger context, a leader of going first and being vulnerable, and how that gives other people the permission to do the same thing. And I know some of the leaders I worked with too would we'd be working on time blocking and creating what their priorities are. So they would say priority is health and performance, taking care of myself. Okay. Don't see it on your calendar, right? Or it gets put at lunch. But I also then, if anyone brings up anything where they want to talk to me at lunch, it gets scheduled over. And instead of treating it like a true priority, if your health is a true priority for you, which hopefully it is, for me, I always have my top 5 priorities listed. I have them on my whiteboard, and my physical, mental, emotional health is number 1. It's above work. It's above my relationship with my wife. It's above even, being a father. Because if that isn't there and as other things get scheduled over, I can't be great in those other areas. Right. And that's what we're talking about here. So just holding that. And the worry was for them was I got pushback on well, if I if I tell them I can't take this meeting or I can't do this thing because that's my workout time, they're going to respect me less, right? They're going to respect me less because like I'm not all in on the work. And what I told them and what they found, I'm sure you found this too, is like the complete opposite is true.
Yeah.
When someone says, hey, can you meet tomorrow at, 8? Like, actually, I don't get to the office till 9 because I work out. My workout time's 7:30 to 8:30 every day. They're like, oh, or my workout, I take an hour and a half for lunch because I work out for 45 minutes to take care of me every day. So no, I can't do that. They actually like, oh, like they respect you more because they see that you respect yourself and you have self-discipline. And self-discipline is, to go back to our earlier, our very first conversation about like language and cultures, like that's one of my big talking points is that self-discipline is one of the few principles that is universally respected and revered across history and across cultures because we know it's what it takes to accomplish big, powerful things.
Yes, absolutely. And for the leaders listening who are like, well, but what about, well, if the what about, I'm gonna give you a little bit of grace here. If the what about is an absolute true emergency, not a, oh, it's not going to feel pleasant, but the house is burning down kind of emergency. It's like, Sean, if something was going crazy like that and you needed to skip a workout one day because you needed to rescue your child from whatever, or go take them to I'm not going to speak that over you, but something going on. Basically, that's an emergency.
Your kid's sick at school. Like your car breaks down, right?
Yeah.
Like you gotta go.
Yeah, there's things, but when it is, hey, can you meet at 9:00? No, because you can just as easily meet at 9:30 or 10 or 9:00 the next day. Yeah.
I love that. If you don't mind, Tony, what I would love to do here is a bit of like maybe a little more rapid fire, very like tangible takes from an expert here on like what people can do, like immediate stuff. So what are the things you see, like the lowest hanging, low effort fruit, so to speak, right, at work so that we can feel better and perform better that you see people not doing? Like what are the first things we can look at?
Number one is stand. That is, you are going to have such an immediate impact from that. And you don't have to stand all day long. It can be, oh, I've got these 2 Zoom meetings. Stand. I'm going to go ahead and we can put it in the show notes if you want to. Uncaged Ergonomics is who I use for, it's not a full standing desk. It is what's called a laptop stand, and it adjusts so that right now as we're conversing, I've got my laptop on it standing. It will be lowered whenever I need to do sitting work. So standing periodically during the day is a huge one. Another one that has a very high impact for very low effort is sunlight. When sunlight hits your eyes, it immediately begins to produce serotonin. That serotonin is a mood lifter. If you can go walk outside or just have your lunch outside and not sit by a window, but actually go outside, that is going to have a massive impact. And it doesn't take any effort other than walking outside to do that. Those are 2 big ones. Hydration is another one that's huge. Yes, absolutely. I've got my water. You've got yours. It's anytime that your brain even gets 1 to 2% dehydrated, your productivity begins to plummet. And if you're living on coffee, one of the things I have clients do is they're like, I don't want to give up. It's like, I'm never going to ask anybody to give up their morning coffee. Go have your cup of coffee in the morning. We're not crazy here. But from that point on, they're like, oh, but I want great. Have a cup of coffee after you've had another cup of water. Have a cup of water. If you still want a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee. So just start rotating that through the day. You're going to start getting in a lot more water, start being more dehydrated. And by coffee at that point, it can mean sodas or anything else. At early stage, we're not cutting out, we're adding. So we're adding sunlight, we're adding standing, we're adding water. And I would say the fourth is making sure that eating what I call a powerful plate can be a challenge to go full on with it. And I'll describe a powerful plate real quick. I've got videos on this on my YouTube channel. I teach it all the time. If you take your plate, you divide it in half of it be vegetable, The other half you divide between about a quarter carb, complex carb, a quarter protein, and some healthy fat in there somewhere. That is going to give you the most sustained energy. Most people, if they are eating junk food, it's going to be a hard turn to get all the way to a powerful plate. But if you'll just start adding a vegetable each time that you eat, you're not going to see an immediate impact. Like sunlight, you're going to notice an immediate impact. Water, you'll notice an impact within about 48 hours. The powerful plate, starting to add vegetables, it's going to take you a week or two to start noticing a difference in your energy, but you'll start noticing that.
I'll tell you the two, you mentioned it there, but like two for me that are powerful. Sunlight is, I'm just going to like double down on that, especially in the morning and also right after lunch. But in the morning, before I have that first coffee or a first caffeine is like 16 ounces of water. Like 16 ounces of water. If I'm working out a lot, I'll put electrolytes in that, or even just some salt in it in the morning, some minerals. So like that, I think if you just be like, for me, I'm like, if I notice a difference when I make sure that that's the first thing I do. I also think there's like a mental side of like the first thing you do is like prioritize health versus grab that cup of coffee,
Yeah.
It's like something about like mentally, I'm like, I feel like I'm setting myself up. I feel good about how I'm taking care of myself. I'm prioritizing myself just by like drinking a glass of water before I drink coffee for some reason.
Yeah.
And the other one that's huge for me is walking after I eat lunch. Like walking after a meal for like 10 minutes, I feel like completely changes how I feel. What's going on there?
So I'm going to speak to the water and then I'll speak to that. So the water first thing in the morning, I'm 100% with you on that. I keep a glass in my bathroom so that, because we have a whole house, we're blessed. We've got a whole house filtration system. So the water, even from the bathroom tap, is, no chlorine, filtered and all that. So that is literally the first thing I do before I make the bed or anything else. And for me, I think that's one reason I typically, every so often, I'll need green tea for a little bit of caffeine. But because you get dehydrated when you sleep, when you're putting water in first thing in the morning, you're immediately getting a brain boost from that. So you don't crave as much caffeine. If you're a coffee drinker, you might be able to, maybe say you normally drink 2 or 3 cups. You might be able to start just drinking 1 cup of coffee in the morning. If you're doing what Sean and I are talking about, of drinking 16 ounces, 2 cups of water, first thing when you get up. So the movement after, from a digestive standpoint, it certainly helps digestion because you're not doing something that is shutting down your digestion. You're not going running. It's just a 10-minute walk, right? Yeah. So you're helping your digestion. Along with that, you're stimulating the nerve that, I forget what the nerve is called. All of you science geeks out there, please put in the comments what nerve I'm forgetting the name of right now. But there's a nerve that helps to stimulate your digestion, and when you walk, it stimulates that nerve. So it's going to help your digestion with that. I would say that the other thing that it does from just a general getting reset is you've been working all morning. So being able to walk for 10 minutes after lunch mentally is refreshing. It helps you disconnect from whatever went on that morning, and so it lowers your stress.
That's really true. I get like I'm very susceptible to, you want to eat healthy. I feel like does like energy, my energy drops. I get sleepy after I eat. Almost, I think it's like an insulin type thing too. And I feel like it helps. I don't feel that same like drop almost of like.
Does that happen only at lunch, or does that happen after breakfast, after snacks, after dinner, after everything?
Almost any meal, but I would say I notice it most at lunch.
Okay. So if you're noticing it most at lunch, that's also feeding into your afternoon circadian drop.
So it's a double hit. It's double whammy.
So it's like, because even if you were to skip lunch, you would still probably notice a little bit of a dip at 1:30 to 2:30, because that's when you've got a little bit of a dip in energy from the circadian rhythm. Yeah.
What about like work blocks, right? Because that's something I feel like can be kind of personal, but also you mentioned like if someone's doing creative work or someone's put like, sitting down, work 4 hours straight, take a lunch, work 4 hours straight, go home. Not happening. Like that's just not. It's just not. I mean, I don't.
You got
know my
about
desk work that way,
2 hours of productive work in that 8 hours. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So like, especially as we think about ourselves, if we can control that, which most people can, I would say in most work environments, but and then at a org level, like as we look at what does that sort of like work, break, rest, because I know people that where it's like, oh, I'm back to back for 5 hours, so they're like on Zoom and it's just like next meeting. And it's like, how does that impact and how can we schedule or should we schedule optimally to increase our performance? Because ultimately that's what we're looking for is like total output, right? And so what does that look like for, most people, or what should we consider that for ourselves?
My gosh, this is so fun. And I'm saying this because it's like, this is something I work with my clients on because yes, you're right. Everybody's different, but everybody's also the same. And oh my gosh, this is so fun to talk about. One of the things that will help is you as an individual begin tracking when you start noticing your brain starting to wander. Is it every 30 minutes? Is it every hour? Is it with certain topics? Like if you're on 5 hours back to back of Zoom meetings, are you good for the first 2? And then after that, you're noticing you're having trouble concentrating. Start tracking it. But for most people, anywhere, depending on the topic that you're working on, about 60 to 90 minutes is the upper end of what you can do concentrating before you need a break. Now, what that break looks like can be different. And this is where this is for the high performers out there. For those of you who are like, I'm just trying to get a little bit better and get functioning, don't go here. This is going to be too complicated for you. But for those of you that are saying, I'm already exercising, I'm eating well, I'm wanting to optimize my performance, now we're starting to look at actually the types of workouts that you do for the type of activity that you're going to be doing. So if you're having a day that maybe you're studying for a continuing education exam, or maybe it's a day you're just doing a lot of personal learning for your role, whatever it is. If you've got a lot of learning that you're going to do, Sean, I know you're familiar with high intensity interval training. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
High intensity interval training activates the parts of the brain that help you learn. The days that you're going to be doing a lot of learning, that is the day to go do a HIIT workout. If, on the other hand, you are going to be doing a lot of memory recall, maybe you are giving a speech that day and you're needing to remember what you're going to be talking about. Maybe you're taking maybe you've been studying for continuing ed and now you've got the day of the test. High intensity interval training shuts down your memory recall. So that is not the day to do a high intensity. You want to do a low to moderate intensity training that day. If you've got a lot of people interaction, there's mixed reviews and there's studies both ways. So for that, I call it's individual. You test it out. Do you get better? Do you get along better with people, irritating people the day that you've done a HIIT workout? Or so pay attention to yourself, the types of workouts that you do. So even when you're taking those breaks, do I do better to go to a room and do some stretches and some yoga and some deep meditative breathing and calm my system that way? Or do I do better to go out for a brisk walk? Or do I do better to go lift weights hard and heavy for 10 minutes and just get it out of my system? Start playing with that, and you'll be able to then know what types of movement breaks to take. So every 60 to 90 minutes, you need some kind of break. Here's just a quick tip, if your work one day, just maybe this isn't your norm, but one day has to be those 5 hours of back-to-back Zooms. In between each, even if you have to cut out 30 seconds early, bend over, touch your toes, do a couple of stretches, something so that you're getting more blood flow to your brain. Do a few jumping jacks before you get on that next Zoom. Another thing that really gives us Zoom fatigue with that kind of meeting and back-to-back is like right now as we're talking, I'm looking at the camera. So I'm not even making eye contact with you right now, Sean. I'm looking at this. Staring at a dot for 5 hours is exhausting. So in between, go look far in a distance. Go. That's a great thing about going outside is you're making yourself look at a distance. Do not just look at your phone because that's still yet another up close device.
So many good things there. And I love the fact it's like self-experimentation a bit of like what works for you. I didn't know about the recall for HIIT. That's good to know for, when I do like speeches or do things like that. Going to maybe just give myself a break in terms of like go for a long walk or a jog or something.
Yeah.
And I know, you mentioned that if I have to do a lot of people interaction, what I've noticed is just me, you mentioned is like kind of in between that, not necessarily a HIIT workout, but like a strength training, like kind of wear myself down, like get my, put on, I'm an angry music guy. So take my pre-workout, put on my angry music and just like not talk to anyone and just like lift heavy weights and hit muscle failure. And then I'm like, okay, now I can talk to people all day.
Well, you mentioned the music. That is another piece of it. Like when I'm getting deep in with the client on managing their energy, we look at things like music of what type of music is going to make you more productive, what type of music calms you, what kind of music lifts you. We get into all of that because music changes your state. And all of this is about getting your brain and your body into an optimal state. And I'll say one more thing on the time blocking piece of it is knowing when you're best for what. Like Monday mornings, I tend not to book meetings because that is very strategic and creative thinking time for me. I'm very fresh at that point. For other people, Monday mornings, they're just kind of getting their head into what they're doing. That's an ideal time for them to knock out a couple of meetings. So it's for you paying attention to what your brain likes to do when, and then blocking accordingly when possible.
And isn't it true? I know I've found it for me, but I think I've read this and heard this multiple times, especially for men because of our 24-hour hormonal cycle, that we tend to be much more like focused and attentive and productive like during the morning versus at night. As we're with women, maybe it might be not as pronounced because of the longer hormonal cycle. Is that true or am I making stuff up?
I'm going to speak from experience, not from science that I've read.
Okay.
So experience for me says that, yes, true for men on what you said. Women, it all depends on the time of the month.
Yeah. No, that backs up what I've studied too, and I've talked is like that men are on that 24-hour hormonal cycle, and so like where our testosterone is so much higher in the morning and sort of like slowly wanes, and so I know if I'm trying to do deep work, hard work, complex thinking, that sort of thing, I always try to do it first thing, and after lunch, basically, I'm worthless when it comes to that. As I get older, it gets worse. But I have heard, not from experience, but that, for women, again, but important to know, right? So maybe you can plan blocks of days or times when it's like, maybe I need to do a lot of writing. Maybe you could plan it around those times when you are sort of like hormonally optimized. And maybe there's some days we need to take light days and we need to schedule our personal time,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With women, and with women also remembering half of the workforce of women is on cycle. And so there's going to be ebbs and flows of energy and ability to focus and like there's certain times of the month, you're extra creative. I mean, so learning those rhythms. And then there's another half of the workforce are either in the middle of perimenopause, which means everything's jacked up, or they're postmenopause, which means depending on if they're on hormones or not or what, that's where it does become very individual, but it can be done. Been there, done that. It can be done.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe do another whole episode on, hormones and especially in women and in the workforce, just awareness around that. Because I think there's this, and has been, historically at least this, I mean, this, we can't go into this because we would be a whole nother episode, but around the, how historically most of a lot of work, especially corporate work, has been sort of driven by masculine social interactions, masculine, phases, like all those things. And so integrating and how women, and almost trying to expect women to perform or be optimal in the same way you expect men to do from a social situation, from a hormonal, from an energy situation, from a work flexibility. I mean, there's all those things, right, that go into like as we become leaders in complex and diverse organizations, we need to be aware of and educate ourselves on it.
Yeah. And I completely 100% agree with everything you said. And yes, it would be a fantastic, interesting conversation for us to go down that. For the women listening who are at different levels of leadership and different levels of influence, know that it's okay if you've been needing, because your job is your job. That is, I worked in corporate for several years. It didn't matter what time of the month it was. My job was my job. But knowing, oh, that means some particular weeks, I have to not take on an extra project. I still do my job, but maybe I don't take on something extra that week. Or maybe I take extra better care of myself that week. So learning personally how to give and take, important.
Sure, it's been great. I appreciate you and this time. And like I said, I feel like we keep going on. I think there's a ton of value in this. Where, if you want to find out more about working with you and what you do, what's the best place for them to go?
Few simple things. One is my website, ViReo Life, TheVireo life.com, or just reach out to me, Sheri, SHERI, at TheVireoLife.com.
Beautiful. And we will make sure we have links to that. So as you're listening to this, you can go to show notes and click it. Sheri, good friend. Good to see you today. This is a fun conversation, and I hope it's not our last.
I hope not either. And it's almost lunchtime, which means that it's time for both of us to go walk.
Let's get outside. All right. We'll see you, Sheri.
Thanks for being a part of the No Limit Leadership family. This isn't just a podcast. We're building a movement of no limit leaders driven to unlock our greatness and lead the world forward. If this made you think or gave you something useful, please, 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 right now, go hit follow and then share it with one leader you believe in. Challenge limits, develop leaders, fuel greatness.